on the deprogramming journey, the more we deprogram, the more overt the programming appears for us to be, whether it's in terms of the operations that are launched around us or the engineering that is active in the lives of original sparks. And the programming also they are under to adopt certain choices and behaviors. The choice to share space with handlers sometimes, and you might be aware that of the frequency signatures of handlers in the lives of original spark around you, and they might not be aware of that yet. It takes time to break programming, and the more you deprogram yourself, the more you recognize the patterns in the life of others, and you can trace all the signatures, especially the signature of engineering. I mean, deprogramming is a path. It's also a practice, and the more you just take distance from a lot of the things that are meant to keep you in your programming or reinforce your programming, the more their signatures are going to be felt, the signature of programming is going to be felt as an intrusion in your field, and it's going to have this vibe of artificiality or like really weird, like you cannot really fully understand anymore the reason behind such things and why, I mean, programming as a signature as well. So it's its own kind of exercise to take yourself through that period of time, just as we've been doing in the end of December. And deepening, deprogramming doesn't mean things get much easier. Like there is a complexity to, and the programs knows where you are exactly. So it uses things that maybe did not used to make you anxious, and now they do. So it's going to use that, or it's going to use the way you think or what you're going to wonder with your newly awakened state. So that's really interesting. And so it doesn't get much easier. It's changing form though. And I think there is a need that develop because I think on this journey we become stronger in front of gaslighting, which is a massive MK Ultra methods to destabilize individuals. So when you get stronger from that, when you know how to hold your truth and stand with your truth, I think what is meant to destabilize you gets much easier to bear and to go through, especially once you've taken yourself through the steps already a first time. For example, I think about, exiting hive mind environments. And once you've done it one with a big hive mind you were part of, you know the steps, you know how it can go, and you know how the truth gets distorted. And, with the years, you build yourself much stronger, even if things can get tough and, they don't affect you the same way as they used to do. And that's a good thing, because the suffering is really decreased. So it's important to remember that. It's also important to remember that you know what you know about, about how it works here and how the minds of beings are heavily, heavily manipulated, and how you are often projected a false, distorted image, not only of yourself, but of everything that is going on, including in the family environment, right? There are a lot of cover memories, cover stories, things that are said in the context of the family. Everybody's got their version, but if it's someone that is generated from the holographic realm, so someone who is basically mostly AI, what they say is usually programmed to have a specific effect on the original sparks. And so not everything is to be taken seriously, because we find a lot of false realities there. So this year again, you cannot escape really the programming being streamed through social media, but not only, also, how the holiday programming is affecting your geographical reality as well, with, for example, the Christmas decorations or the firework. It's a noise that you cannot really avoid, or even the sight of it, you're cannot really ignore that. That's what's happening on the game map for the majority, and the programs want to have the agreement of and consent and active participations of original spark. And the aim is basically distraction, lowering of the frequency, and time handling. You will always find a lot of time handling going on here. And when it's not that, it's going to be something else. That's what's happening when things need repair or are breaking down. There are many ways to handle the way we spend our time, and these ways are used and abused by the programs in order for us not to really focus on what's fruitful, and also making us believe, that's why hive mind, that's what they are for as well, is to have a certain amount of control over how you spend your time in communities that are oftentimes handled, and it's a space where the image that others have of you can easily be influenced outside the personal experience that they have with you, with a lot of people believing in false realities, lies that are spread as well. It doesn't seem really doable, realistic to be escaping the Christmas and New Year frenzy. And it's interesting to observe how the majority is going under programming to some extent. Now, there are percentages to that. They are the ones who are fully involved in it, but then there are levels of involvement and withdrawal, and steps that have been taken back, sometimes back and forth, due to different programs being triggered, like guilt programming. Sometimes it can be hard to refuse invitation if you care too much, or if it plays on this programming, even if you know who are these beings, sometimes not a lot of them are real either. So there are a lot of false rituals happening that are based on programming. And we know the new year, the real one, is around spring when the light is coming back, especially in some parts of the world. You know, like for the moment here in Belgium, it's the winter colder season. And spring is a time when I do feel, maybe not always, because there's been a lot of programming to numb the body and the consciousness as well. But recently, I mean, I've been more in tune with feeling that internal renewal and internal hope and internal something wants to come out that feels like the real new year. It's a natural opening that is felt within around that period. So it's and it's not there right now. This process is not ongoing for the moment in the middle of, you know, winter time. These programs around the holiday seasons are meant to, you know, keep busy, keep distracted, keep numb, keep handled. A great deal of original spark is here during the same period, right? And another level of what's going on is, you know, because when people are interacting with us, with you, going under the programming, right, when they are sharing wishes, I mean, you have different ways to share wishes, and you can still share wishes playing the game consciously, if you know. But for example, I think about someone who has half assisted me with repairing my car from time to time, half inserted MK Ultra insert there that were dark. So for example, you know, if these kind of beings are wishing, you know, it's interesting to observe our behavior. Do we go on automatic, like where, and it's going to be different each moment. It's going to be, you know, you can find your own truth in that without participating, without consenting, with staying kind, with considering, you know, what serves you and what doesn't. And sometimes what serves you is not to completely stay silent, for example, but I mean, you can, and usually there are not so many consequences from not answering, you know, messages that are based on programming. But it's a great way to notice automatic or reactive programming and where it takes us, and working on all these wires inside, because that's where the real work is. Especially, I've seen so much damage is done by reactive programming. And I've been given the site of my own programming once with all the cables and wires. So I know there is a lot of work for everybody, every original Spark who has gone through the MK Ultra programs. Most don't know it. So, you know, it's an important mark point to be aware about some of the deeper aspects of this reality here, because it makes a lot more sense about the nature of what's going on in our lives and the ending influences and the extreme engineering, and why a lot of people are not meant to stay in your life, because Most of the people are brought to you or you find them, it depends. The programs also play on, what kind of personality you have and how you are naturally built as well. So not a lot is based on the truth, but what it is really strong. And what is meant to stay, I see them as lifetime relationships. And these are, for me, the most interesting one to invest in by far. And it's great to know who is not meant to have a lifetime relationship with you here. It's just going to be, a little interaction during a little bit of time. But I digress. So these rituals that we've been witness of, they're not really sacred. There's been some false, inverted, corrupted religious programming. These rituals are based on programming anyway, because also it's an external authority who tell us. It doesn't come from, it's the program traditions, and they are placed there because I think the programs want to lower the frequency of the original spark around the time of solstice, which seems to be an important time. And it seems very important for them to keep the frequency as low as possible, as numb as possible, for different covert reasons. They need the energy lowered. Now, sometimes the holiday season is going to trigger different things like feeling pressured, for example, by family demands, or, it's going to play on different sides of your programming sometimes. Or, when you extract from it, it can play on nostalgia programming. Maybe some Stockholm syndrome can be triggered as well. But there is a good reason why people are not in our lives anymore. And it's important to remember the damages that they were doing to our mental, psychic, psychological, emotional health, sometimes even physical health. And we can find a bit of the same programming being triggered around birthdays. And you might go through different phases as you try different things. And there are different energies also associated with birthdays and rituals. And also usually, I don't know, many originals who really have not a complex kind of relationship maybe with their birthdays, because they've been going also through different phases and steps, and every phase and step gonna trigger different things as well, different layers of programming as well. It's layered here. That's why it's also so complex. So we find a lot of time handling around this season, a lot of distraction, find family programming, and the family environment is something that is really complex to navigate here as a being. Normally, the more memory you have, the more extraction has been done from the toxicity and the handling and the triggering that we find in the family environment. Family programming is also really reinforced by the entertainment industry and is really enforced during this time of the year. And it's not a lot of movies which gonna share this truth that how originals are placed inside families through different projects, governmental, military, milab projects. And it's something that counter also the New Age beliefs that, you know, originals are not that they mention a lot, you know, the real aspect where there's the backdrop aspect in the New Age, but you know, it's not that it's entirely false that we choose our family, because certain beings have more say in these programs, like than others. So it's really specific to each of us, and you have to trace how you feel about it to really get back to the memory and the knowing about what's the answer for you. And in families, we're going to often find dynamics between parent and children that are interesting, that are sometimes going to be, you know, who is the handler, who is the handlee. We can find spiritless backdrop technology there in the family environment. It gets complicated, you know, if you know, in the family environment, you're often going to be linked to some of these members. And it's good to know that and to remember that not everything is allowed here in terms of, you know, what is permitted. Some beings are inserted in really low frequency families. They're not really lucky at the lottery, as I call it. And sometimes they end up with two parents that are, you know, quite major handlers. And it gets more difficult if you don't have at least one ally in the family, but you can still do it. I mean, so I wouldn't say that it's really a holiday to be spending time with that many handling influences. And these times are also encouraging to be binded in more hidden contracts than maybe necessary. And breaking through cover memories about what's going on really in the family environment as it's timing. It takes time. And sometimes it takes more time with people, you know, for example, backdoor parents that are not overtly abusive, but that are a distraction and still have a handling influences. So the holiday season is often used as an excuse to turn towards overindulgence with food and alcohol as well. The food coma lead to maybe turning to the entertainment industry with Christmas movies or comedies. And we see families in December decorating the tree together as it's a tradition. So we see also celebrities going under programming about that. We find Christmas songs as well. And for example, Mariah Carey is very known for some of her Christmas album. I don't know if she did many, but at least one she did. And she's been really, boxed in the Christmas cube programming, which is really sad to see, when you have beings who, have vastness, and what they are reduced to do sometimes can be a bit absurd. And I already feel the drugging coming from, fruits and vegetables that are from mainstream stores. So while, yeah, I notice how mind control is much easier, when you just feel like you don't have a lot of energy. It doesn't help with ADHD, and your mind just not able to focus for long. And in my case, I started disentangling a lot from the holiday programming almost 10 years ago, around 2015, something like that. I still participated in some forms after that, but not much. And the departure of my mother for other realm also kind of made easier different things and withdrawal that maybe it would have taken a bit more time if things would have been different. And I remember also about the new year that probably some of my last New Year's celebrations were more like electronic music parties, because it was just, I think it's just a pretense, like an excuse to go on that escape kind of programming as well. And I remember it quite clearly. So, but everything's felt more artificial to me this year, even more than last year. And I barely remember, I do remember how I felt, last year or the year before. The year before, I'm not sure, but, the memory wiping drugs wipe a lot. So memory are not really entirely clear sometimes. And you can trace these drugs sometimes in your system, if you pay attention, you can feel how they affect your mind and your consciousness. So I felt further away from all of that was happening this year than the year before. Though, you cannot really escape the frenzy, like it's all around you, with noise, with people. And so it's important to keep on doing our things beyond all these programs. And I noticed it's the second year I noticed that, I noticed that this year, that it's a time when the matrix tries to trigger high level of anxiety. I think also it has to do with solstice. And the matrix succeeds for the second year already, with a very innovative ways out of the blue, out of the box. So for me, I do feel better if I have space around this period, just to make sure I take care of what I need to be taken care of. And it can be a busy period due to the heaviness of the programming affecting others around us, their decisions, their choices, their behaviors. It can make it a high demand time in different things. For example, in the traveling industry or food gathering, and we are sure in need of healthy, sane rituals, but I don't know many of them happening or being proposed out there on the game map. So in the meantime, these rituals can be done in prayers and commanding the energies in the truth. And it's true that the degree of engineering in our life is extreme. It's always good when there is a collapsing. It shows that we're breaking programming, exiting hive minds, because there is not much truth and only a handful are meant to stay in our lives and be lifetime allies to build the new paradigms here, including new rituals and new ways of being together in spirit family, redesigning new ways of drinking, of eating and nourishing ourselves, enjoying food that is not harming the body or creating harmful acidic residue, harming the organs or the kidneys. So I stand for these high frequency ways of being beyond programming.